On a dark night along the Russian coast, Oleg assists smugglers in stealing a ton of caviar using a small boat. The sailor he hired objects, reminding Oleg that his boat can only hold 600 kilos, and remains firm even when offered more money. However, Oleg is undeterred. He pretends to call his wife but actually instructs the smuggler to claim the cargo is 600 kilos to convince the sailor. The ruse succeeds, and they load the ton of caviar, but they can't travel far as the boat and cargo begin to sink, forcing the men to swim to shore. When the sailor demands compensation for the damage, Oleg gives him his modern car, leaving him with the sailor's old, rickety vehicle and $1 million in debt to the smugglers. The next day, Oleg visits his girlfriend Sveta at her bank to request a loan, but she can't assist him since he hasn't finished repaying his previous one. Eager to help, Sveta suggests they ask her family for support since they own a house. Oleg dislikes this idea, as he can't stand her family and prefers to avoid them, but he has no choice. They drive to her family home, where everyone lives together. Sveta's father Boris, who sings odd songs and hasn't left the house in 5 years due to being wanted. Her grandfather Pavel, who wishes for death. Her sister Rita, an accountant at the theater who dreams of performing. Her brother Talik, who aspires to join the army but can't due to asthma and enjoys training dogs. And her sister Sasha, a young girl who daydreams about adulthood and has a crush on Sveta's boyfriend. Oleg attempts to discuss his financial issues with Boris, but must wait until Boris finishes singing. When Boris finally listens, he panics, equating selling the house to selling his family into slavery. Oleg tries to clarify that no one will lose anything. He just needs a guarantor's letter, but Boris still refuses. Their argument is cut short when a meteorite crashes through the roof, hitting Pavel. Initially, the family rushes outside, fearing an attack, but upon seeing a meteor shower, they realize the truth and return inside to check on their grandfather. After settling him in bed, Oleg and his siblings begin to dig out the meteorite to sell it, but one by one, they fall asleep, leaving Oleg to dig alone until morning. When he emerges from the hole, he finds Pavel calling from bed, saying he is about to die. Oleg wants to call for an ambulance, but Pavel refuses, stating he has lived long enough and wishes to depart peacefully. Before dying, he gives Oleg a final message for the family: they can all go to hell. After confirming Pavel's death, Oleg rushes to tell Sveta, but she is deeply asleep and unresponsive. Oleg eventually falls asleep beside her, and when Talik arrives later to show him something, Sveta is missing. Oleg follows Talik to the living room, where he discovers the meteorite has turned into a strange liquid. Sasha has developed super strength, and Rita can fly. Sveta appears shortly after, half her body invisible, and Pavel suddenly reappears, alive and well. However, when Rita loses control of her flying ability and crashes through the roof, she falls, and Pavel dies again as Sveta becomes fully visible. After helping Rita back inside and securing her to prevent her from floating away again, which wakes Pavel, they conclude that the meteorite has granted them special powers. Sveta suggests contacting the authorities, but as soon as she exits the room, Pavel dies again and Rita stops floating. It appears these abilities only function when they are together. They visit a doctor for advice, but he informs them they are healthy and nothing is wrong with their bodies. The interruption they experience when apart must simply be a part of their powers. Later at dinner, they debate how to use these powers. Rita wants to perform, but Pavel fears they will be experimented on if discovered. While Talik feeds his dogs and realizes he can now understand them, Oleg proposes that the family should appear on TV for payment, but Boris refuses to exploit his family. At bedtime, Oleg inquires about the money in the bank while Sveta wonders if she will have invisible children. The next morning, Pavel attempts to hang himself, but it proves futile. As long as he is with his family, he remains alive. Boris discovers his teleportation ability when he goes to the bathroom and strains too hard, deciding the family needs a vacation to cope with this. They head to a lake to fish, and while Boris learns to control his power, Oleg shares his plan. They should collaborate to rob a bank. With Sveta being invisible, she can simply walk in and out with a money bag while the others wait in the car to maintain her ability. Rita, Talik, and Sasha are on board, but Boris keeps rejecting the idea, even claiming he doesn't care if Oleg leaves and they lose their powers. Frustrated, Oleg hops in the car, with Sveta following after instructing her family to store Pavel's body in the basement until their return. While driving, Oleg attempts to persuade Sveta that his plan is sound, but they are abruptly forced to stop by another vehicle. It's the smugglers, demanding their payment. Oleg assures them he can have it ready in a month, but they refuse. He must pay within a week or they will sell his organs on the Chinese black market. Once the smugglers depart, Sveta realizes that Oleg's debt is more than financial. It threatens his life, prompting her to agree to assist him. The next day, the couple brings Boris to view a lovely new house they could purchase if they follow through with the plan. Boris believes he doesn't need a new home, but Sveta finally asserts herself, explaining that the family is tired of the dilapidated house and will move anywhere with a working toilet. Boris still declines, but when Sveta begins to cry and highlights that this is her first time asking for his help and he refuses to listen to his daughter, Boris ultimately relents and agrees to rob the bank. After going over the plan's details, the family celebrates the new life ahead, with Sasha frequently interrupting Oleg and Sveta during their attempts at privacy. The following morning, she even applies makeup to impress him. Oleg is taken aback when all family members start laying down conditions for their collaboration. Pavel wants to be cremated post-robbery, Rita wishes to perform in front of an audience, and Sasha desires a date with him. Oleg believes they are demanding too much and declines to cooperate, but Boris reprimands him, stating that if he wants to be part of the family, he must help them or the deal is off. Thus, Oleg has no option but to meet everyone's demands. After visiting the theater where Rita works and planning her show, Oleg finally realizes his ability while in bed with Sveta. He can pour water from his finger, which Sveta notes is handy for watering plants. The next morning, Sasha joins the couple to scout the bank they plan to target. It's not the one she works at, so they can remain inconspicuous. As they discuss the plan, Sasha inquires about what would happen if Sveta were caught and imprisoned, questioning who would care for Oleg. Amused, Sveta humorously assures her she can handle it. Upon returning home, they discover Talek has shaved his head after being accepted into the army, meaning he won't be available for the bank heist. Boris is saddened by the prospect of losing his son, but Oleg can't stop fixating on the plan. He pulls some strings with his contacts to have the army inform Talek that it was a mistake. Talek is understandably furious and distressed by this development, but Boris is openly pleased that the army, in his view, has come to its senses. Oleg reassures Talek, promising that after the bank job, he can speak to some acquaintances to help him out, earning Talek's trust with a hug. Next, they visit a funeral home to arrange for Pavel's cremation. The staff provides them with a paper for Pavel to attach to his chest, ensuring that when the police find him deceased, they will know to take him there. Later, Oleg takes Sasha out for lunch at an upscale restaurant while the family watches from a distance, and Sveta quietly sits beside them to keep an eye on her sister. Sasha wants Oleg to take her with him after the robbery because she can no longer tolerate her family. But before Oleg can refuse, they are interrupted by smugglers dining nearby. As Sasha realizes they are trouble, she stands up and swiftly confronts them. The entire family starts fleeing to avoid conflict, causing Sasha to lose her super strength and leave the smugglers behind. That night, the family listens to Talek's dog sing the national anthem. The next day, it's time to put the plan into action. Oleg parks the car across the street in the sun since the shaded alley Boris indicated has a no parking sign. Since Sveta can only make her body invisible, not her clothes, she removes them before entering the bank, invisible and naked, alongside Oleg. She trails the employees to learn all the passwords and safe codes while Oleg snaps a picture of the floor plan for potential escape. Meanwhile, Boris, tired of the heat, decides to move the car to a small alley for cooler air. This creates a problem. That area is reserved for the bank's armored truck, and when one arrives, they ask the family to move. Boris refuses, fearing it would make Sveta visible, so the guards use their truck to push the car away. As Sveta appears before an employee and a client in disbelief, the family calls Oleg, who rushes out to help drag Pavel's body to the front of the bank to be closer to Sveta again. She quickly regains her powers and vanishes, leaving the two men who saw her thinking they were hallucinating. The family prepares to leave but is halted by the police, who just want to check on them. Boris, however, believes he's a wanted man and teleports away, ending up inside the cop's truck unintentionally and getting arrested. Hours later, Oleg frees him after losing another car as payment, and upon returning home, he informs the family that Boris isn't actually wanted. It was all in his head. Furious, he scolds everyone for their misbehavior and demands they promise to avoid further arguments or misuse of their powers. The next day, they still need to take Rita to the theater as part of the deal. When it's her turn to perform, she notices a large crowd, including familiar faces, and becomes overwhelmed with stage fright. Rita flies out of the theater, unwilling to perform, and when Oleg chases after her, he is captured by smugglers, who drag him to the stage and beat him up, turning him into the new show of the day. Once they finish and release him, Oleg, filled with anger and pain, berates the entire family for their continuous failures, calling them lazy, selfish fools who could use the best technology just to scratch themselves. Oleg attempts to leave, wanting nothing more to do with them, but Boris hatches a plan to kidnap him. As night falls, the family returns to the bank, ready to execute the robbery, while Pavel distracts some nearby drunk men by drinking fuel and igniting his breath. The rest of the family masks their faces and prepares to strike. Sasha positions a truck in the street to conceal their actions. Then she pulls a chain Rita attached to the window, creating a hole in the wall. Boris teleports inside, and Sasha tosses Sveta into the hole before Rita lifts her and flies her along with the others. Sveta uses the code she learned to disable the alarm, while Sasha simply picks up the safe and throws it onto the street. As the family begins taking the money out and tossing it into the car, the police arrive. However, Talek distracts them by sending the dogs after the officers. Once they have collected all the money they can carry, they escape after picking up Pavel, who leaves a fire in his wake as he runs. By the time they are far from the bank and stop to celebrate, the sun has risen. Pavel sees his uses this moment to remind them of the final part of the deal, asking to be left behind so he can finally die. After everyone bids him farewell, the family drives off, but they become distressed when they see Pavel's body fall lifelessly and return to assist him. Pavel rejects their help, shouting that this is what he desires. Boris interjects, suggesting they should live together as a happy family, but Oleg counters that they can't stay since their plan didn't go as smoothly as intended and the police will eventually find them. Moreover, he and Sveta have already made plans to go to Thailand. Talik is heading to Moscow, and Sasha and Rita want to travel to Brazil. The girls want Boris to accompany them, but he doesn't have time to respond because Pavel announces he has called the police to locate his soon-to-be dead body, prompting the family to leave for good this time. Sveta is deeply affected by her grandfather's death and refuses to take the money when Oleg starts dividing it hours later, insisting they should return it. Oleg declines, leading Sveta to kick him out of the car, declaring she no longer wants to be with him. Realizing the family hasn't changed after all, Oleg departs to handle his own affairs. He pays the smugglers what he owed, then conceals the remaining cash by taping it to his body beneath his clothes. At the airport, ready to leave the country, he sees on the news that the family has been arrested for attempting to retrieve Pavel's body from the funeral home. Initially, he tries to ignore it, but once on the plane, he can't suppress the guilt and returns to town to assist them. His first stop is the funeral home, where he attempts to bribe the employee for the body. Given the high demand for Pavel, the man demands 1 million and refuses to consider any lower offers Oleg proposes. With no other option, Oleg pays all his remaining money and takes Pavel to the court where the family is on trial. As they enter, everyone regains their powers, leading to chaos. Boris teleports out of the cage, and while he and Pavel start fighting, Sasha breaks the cage to free her siblings. Together, they incapacitate several officers while others flee. And now reunited, Boris acknowledges that this wild plan officially makes Oleg part of the family. Outside, a group of armed cops waits, which Rita distracts by soaring above them, pretending to be a religious apparition. This gives them enough time to steal a car and escape, but the police quickly recover and pursue them through the city. Boris teleports into one of the police cars to make them drive away. Sasha uses her super strength to push others, and when they accidentally crash through a vegetable stand and the mirror gets dirty, Oleg cleans it with water he pours from his finger. Sasha uses her strength once more to help the car make a sharp turn, leading to a collision among the police vehicles, except for one. They finally evade capture when Rita stands and lifts the car as she ascends, causing it to float away with her. Later, the family meets the smugglers and pays them to conceal them in a container for an undetected escape to Thailand. They now have 20 days ahead, with only each other for company.